Hi, everyone. Today we are going to go over Chapter 2, Healthful Nutrition for Fitness and Sport. These are still kind of general guidelines. We're going to go into a little bit more detail, but it's a lot of general concepts that we will get into the specifics later in the semester, later in the class. But the keys, three keys to a healthful diet: balance, variety, moderation. Again, just like last chapter, concepts are not new at all. A total diet approach to healthy eating is recommended by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics as well as the USDA. And we are going to talk quite a bit actually about the prudent healthy diet, which is just a set of guidelines. It's a dozen guidelines used in this text to promote healthful eating. Some things that we go over in this prudent healthy diet: nutrition labels should provide valuable information. It's actually a law. Basic diet for optimal performance, and there are smartphone apps that can help follow this prudent, healthy diet that everybody should be abiding by for their optimal health. Essential nutrients and recommended nutrient intakes. Foods we eat contain essential nutrients, which are nutrients that cannot be produced in adequate quantities in our bodies and must come from our diet. There are also non-essential nutrients as well as other substances that we'll talk about. So carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water are the essential nutrients we will be talking about. Like I said in the last chapter, every single one of these has their own chapter. We will go into great detail about them later, but they are all recommended for us to intake in our daily diet. Macronutrients are needed in relatively large amounts. They provide energy and support growth and development in the body tissues. These are all of the things found in our food: carbohydrate, fat, protein. Water is also considered a macronutrient because we do need it in large amounts. Doesn't necessarily provide energy though. And then micronutrients. These are nutrients we need, but just in very small amounts, milligram or microgram quantity. And these will help regulate metabolic processes. These are various vitamins and minerals. One model of the relationship between nutrient intake and health status, of course, moderation is that key word. That middle portion, you get too little vitamins, nutrients. We develop deficiency diseases and people can eventually die from them. That middle section is where we want to be, where we're getting enough, but not too much, because too much is not a good thing either. Non-essential nutrients are found in food, but they may also be formed in our bodies. Creatine is an example. A lot of people take extra creatine, especially if you work out, you want to build muscle, but our body does synthesize creatine. It is needed for one form of energy production. It's found in our food. It's also produced in our body from certain amino acids. Phytochemicals, classes of phytochemicals are also considered non-essential nutrients, but carotenoids, isoflavonoids, quercetin, extracts, herbals, food additives, drugs, anti-nutrients that are substances that may adversely affect nutrient status. Those are also considered, or they can be found in our diets. How are they determined? The Food Nutrition Board at the Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Scientists. In 1941, they first set the recommended dietary allowances for each of these categories and each of these classes. It's of course been updated since then, and they do it about every 5 years. But there's a lot of acronyms that we're going to go over. Dietary reference intakes is the big umbrella. DRIs, they represent the current standards. And then under this umbrella are all of the rest of these: RDA, AI, AMDR, UL, EAR, and EER. So I found a video that kind of explains them a little better as well. Like I said, this is umbrella. Dietary reference intakes is the broad category, and it is made up of all of these smaller categories. We're going to go over this for a few minutes.
When planning or assessing diets, It's important to know how much of a nutrient is needed, how those needs vary within and among.
Sorry, didn't mean to do that.
When planning or assessing diets, it's important to know how much of a nutrient is needed, how those needs vary within and among different groups of people, and whether there may be risks from consuming too much. For the United States and Canada, such nutrient intake levels are established as dietary reference intakes, or DRIs. DRIs are nutrient intake reference values that apply to people who are apparently healthy. Within the DRIs, there are different categories of values that have different applications. For example, the estimated average requirement, or EAR, is a nutrient intake level expected to meet the needs of half of the individuals in a particular age, sex, and life stage group. The EAR can be used to assess prevalence of inadequacy in a group. The Recommended Dietary Allowance, or RDA, serves as a recommended intake for individuals and can be used to determine if an individual's typical nutrient intake level has a low likelihood of being inadequate. When an EAR and RDA cannot be established, an adequate intake, or AI, may be set. Although it is unknown exactly how the AI relates to requirements, it can serve as a goal for an individual's nutrient intake. The tolerable upper intake level, or UL, is not an intake goal, but rather is the highest level of usual intake, unlikely to cause adverse effects from excessive intake for almost all individuals in the group. Those with nutrient intakes above the UL are at potential risk for adverse effects. Good nutrition is more than just preventing nutrient deficiencies and avoiding possible adverse effects from overconsumption. Certain levels of nutrient intake may also reduce the risk of chronic disease in an apparently healthy population. An important part of the DRI process is reviewing the scientific evidence on the relationships between nutrient intake and chronic disease risk. Using this type of scientific evidence to establish DRI values, however, is not an easy task. Why? Because the causes of chronic diseases are complex and not just related to how much or what you eat. Nutrient intake may be one of many risk factors for chronic disease. Risk varies from person to person due to these many factors. Accurate estimates of nutrient intake are often difficult to determine. Scientific evidence often comes from studies from which it's hard to establish cause and effect relationships. A more defined approach was needed to use the growing body of evidence on the relationships between nutrient intake and chronic disease risk in the DRI process. A new category of intake values has been added to the DRIs, called the Chronic Disease Risk Reduction Intake, or CDRR. This new DRI category characterizes nutrient intakes that are expected to reduce chronic disease risk in an apparently healthy population. The CDRR does not replace any of the existing DRI categories, but it changes how evidence on relationships between nutrient intake and chronic disease risk is assessed and used in the DRI process. Collectively, the DRIs have a broad range of applications for planning and assessing the nutrient intakes of individuals and groups. The DRIs provide information about how much of a nutrient is needed, how those needs vary within and among different groups of people, whether there may be risks from consuming too much, and whether certain nutrient intake levels are expected to reduce the risk of chronic disease.
A few of the other acronyms that weren't covered in that video, the estimated energy requirement, or EER, is an estimate of the amount of energy needed to sustain requirements for daily physical activity. And the acceptable macronutrient distribution range, the AMDR, is defined as a range of intakes for a particular energy source that is associated with reduced risk of chronic disease while providing adequate intake of essential nutrients. That is expressed as a percentage of total energy intake. So carbohydrates, we should get our energy from 45 to 65% carbohydrates in our diet. There's also percentages for fat and protein. So what is a balanced diet? By eating a wide variety of foods in moderation, you will obtain all the nutrients you need to support growth and development of tissues, regulate metabolic processes, and provide adequate energy for proper weight control. If all of those things are met, you are eating a balanced diet. Different conditions may influence nutrient needs and the concept of a balanced diet: age, gender, lifestyle, sport, health status. We'll go over a few of these in the end, at the end of the chapter. The My Plate Food Guide is a dietary guidance system. It represents the 2015 to 2020 dietary guidelines for Americans. Like I said, it's updated about every 5 years. It should be updated this year to reflect 2020 to 2025. We'll see. It is designed to help promote health through proper nutrition and physical activity, and it focuses on 6 groups of the food: fruits, vegetables, protein foods, grains, dairy, and oil. In another assignment this week, you guys will actually be using this to assess your own diet, or you should be. The Harvard Medical School has actually modified MyPlate to present specific recommendations for healthy eating. So we have, of course, vegetables and fruits should be at least half. Whole grains and healthy proteins should be half. We need a lot of water. We need a little bit of healthy oil, like olive oil, canola oil, avocado, salmon. Those all have healthy oils in them. The key nutrient concept for obtaining balance. 8 nutrients are central to human nutrition and protein. The key nutrient concept for obtaining a balanced diet. 8 nutrients are central to human nutrition: protein, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamins A, C, iron, and calcium. The key nutrient concept says that if these 8 key nutrients are adequate in your diet, you will probably receive an ample supply of all nutrients essential to humans to function properly. To work, you must obtain the nutrients from a wide variety of minimally processed whole foods. That is the best way to get them. Nutrient density. Food with high nutrient density possess a significant amount of a specific nutrient or even nutrients per serving compared to its caloric intake. So, soda versus milk. Again, we all know this. This should be a known concept, but all of those nutrients are found in milk: protein, vitamin A, thiamine, riboflavin, a little bit of niacin, and a lot of calcium. That is a nutrient dense drink compared to how many calories you consume when you drink it. Soda, on the other hand, is the opposite. It has more calories, doesn't have any of the rest of those things. It is nutrient deficient. Healthful dietary guidelines. These are targeted to prevent these main chronic diseases: coronary artery disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, osteoporosis, and obesity. The basis underlying these guidelines is a relationship between diet and development of chronic diseases. There's been many, many studies relating to this. Earlier guidelines are based on epidemiological research, which may have led to some erroneous recommendations. It's science. We update. Every time we find something new, we update. It's why they're updated every 5 years. Current guidelines are evolving as more long-term experimental studies are conducted. And of course, there's no absolute proof, but prudent recommendations are best practices to maintain a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. So, what are the recommended dietary guidelines to reduce the risk of chronic diseases? The synthesis of various reports from governmental, educational, and professional health organizations. That's what a meta-analysis is. It's when they take all of these studies from all of these different places and they put them together and they analyze them and they basically summarize the results from all the rest of these studies. Taken together, it may be helpful in preventing most chronic diseases, including cardiovascular diseases and cancer, the top killers of humans. And diet is only one factor that may influence the development of chronic diseases. Other positive lifestyle behaviors, such as exercise, avoiding tobacco use, and managing stress, are also important. The Mediterranean diet has been recommended to cover all of these dietary guidelines. It emphasizes plant-based foods, olive oil, fresh fish, and red wine in moderation, of course, and always optional, while enjoying meals with family and friends, which can reduce stress. Sometimes. It could increase secretion of anti-inflammatory cytokines and antioxidant activity, which could also counter diseases associated with chronic inflammation. But for the most part, we follow a prudent, healthy diet. Mediterranean diet falls under this category. Prudent healthy diets maintain or improve healthy weights. Consume a wide variety of natural, whole, nutrient rich foods. Choose a plant rich diet with plenty of whole grain products, legumes, fruits, and vegetables if you want. There are various plant based diets that you can choose from, which we'll get to. But also, those are the first three. I'm not sure why they were bullet pointed instead of numbered, but 4, 5, and 6. Choose a diet moderate in total fat and low in saturated and trans fats. Choose a diet moderate in sugars. Choose a diet with less salt and sodium. A little bit is needed, but too much is not a good thing. Eat protein at a moderate yet adequate level. Choose a diet adequate in calcium and iron. And practice food safety. Clean your food. Separate it. Raw meat doesn't go with vegetables. They can contaminate each other. Cook it to an adequate amount to kill all the bacteria from raw meat. And then chill those foods that need to be chilled. Consider the benefits and risks of food additives and dietary supplements. Drink alcoholic beverages in moderation, if at all, and enjoy your food. Food is meant to be enjoyed. So, plant-based diet. There are a lot of different plant-based diets. Vegan is when somebody does not eat animal products at all. Ovo-vegetarian is a person that eats eggs. Lacto-vegetarian eats dairy products. An ovo-lacto-vegetarian will eat both. A pesco-vegetarian at least eats fish as the protein source. And a semi-vegetarian or a flexitarian occasionally eats meat, fish, or poultry, but most of their meals come from plant-based foods. Plant-based diets do come with nutritional concerns. Sometimes there's a caloric deficiency. This may be a problem for children and athletes who need maybe a few more calories because they burn that many more, but it may be an advantage for weight control. Vitamins. Vitamin B12 is not found in plant food, so that either has to be a supplement or get it some other way. Minerals. Iron, calcium, zinc may be deficient in some plant-based diets. And then proteins. Plant proteins are actually incomplete. Vegan diets should contain complementary proteins, grains and cereals low in lysine, legumes, or low in methionine. It's important for a person to following a plant-based diet to eat proteins that are complement each other so that all the essential amino acids are obtained. So nuts and grains go very, very well together. So do rice and beans. That's why you find them in so many countries serve rice and beans along with whatever their protein is. Is following a plant-based diet beneficial? Yes. Overall, there's a reduced risk for numerous chronic diseases and health problems, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, some forms of cancer. An increased fruit and vegetable consumption is associated with a reduced risk of major diseases, particular cardiovascular diseases, as well as increased longevity. Those people live longer. And plant-based diet generally has more nutrients. Concepts that may reduce health risks. Again, the nutrient density, it's low in fat, it's high in fiber, it has low calories, and it has a high vitamin and phytonutrient content. Now, those phytonutrients, potential benefits of antioxidants and phytonutrients, they affect enzyme activity. Enzymes do everything in the body. We always want our enzymes to work. Our enzymes don't work, we have a problem. They detoxify carcinogenic compounds. They block cell receptors for natural hormones. They prevent formation of excess oxygen-free radicals. They alter cell membrane structure and integrity. They can also suppress DNA or protein synthesis. And these are all important processes to keep us healthy. At the bottom is a chart. It's table 2.8 in your book, but they always say eat a rainbow of different color foods. And these are just the different color foods, their main phytonutrient, and the foods that are found in. Recommendations for following a plant-based diet. If you want to start, you start slowly and gradually to include more plant-based foods in your diet in the first place. So you don't have to completely change your diet, just add some more fruit and vegetables here and there. Select leaner meats. such as baked or grilled turkey or chicken. You may wish to become octo-lacto vegetarian, eating eggs and dairy products, or pescatarian, eating fish, and learn how to purchase and prepare snacks and meals that contain complementary proteins and supply adequate amounts of essential nutrients. There is limited research on the effect of vegetarian diets on athletes. There are pros and cons, just like there are to everything. Pros, it's high in healthful carbohydrates and effective for weight control. Fortified foods may help provide adequate vitamins and minerals. Plant and animal proteins can provide equivalent total nitrogen and essential amino acids. The cons, there might be an increased risk for non anemic iron deficiency. We get a lot of our iron from red meat, as well as a lot of our creatine from red meat. We have to be careful to supplement those. And lower muscle creatine levels may impair very high intensity exercise. Food labels is the next section. Nutrition labeling is mandatory for almost all foods regulated by the FDA. However, whole foods, fruits, vegetables, meat, fish, those are voluntary. There is a nutrition facts panel. If you look at most of the food you buy, there's that panel with all the information. It's designed to provide information on the nutrients that are of major concern for consumers. The kcal per serving must be listed in a large bold font to be highly visible. Percent daily values must also be listed, and ingredients are listed in descending order by weight. So, most everybody have seen these nutrition facts. Serving size in household units and in grams. So whatever this is, its serving size is 16 pieces, which is easier for us to think about than 29 grams. Servings per container, amount per serving of the following. Kcal, those when you see calories on one of these nutrition labels, it's actually kilocalories. Total fat and the different fats broken down, cholesterol, sodium, the total carbohydrates, which include different types of sugars, natural and added sugars, protein, vitamin D, and then all of the other vitamins and minerals, potassium, calcium, iron. So how can I use this information? Daily value represents how much of a specific nutrient you should obtain in your daily diet. It is based on a 2,000 calorie diet because that's just the average of what most people eat or need to eat to maintain a healthy lifestyle. It's listed on most food products for adults and children 4 years of age or older. Daily values for infants and children less than 4 years of age, also pregnant and lactating women, may be a little bit different, but it may be included on foods commonly eaten by those population, like toddler foods. So the daily value for adults and children 4 more years of age or more. This is a whole chart, again, found in your book. Fats, cholesterol, carbohydrates, fiber. We are supposed to get 25 grams of fiber every single day. I know I don't get that. Do you get that? We'll see. You guys are going to do your My Plate this week and analyze your own diet. So the daily value represents the percentage contribution one serving of the food makes to the daily diet for that nutrient based on current recommendations for healthful diets. A lower DV is desirable for total fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, and sodium. A DV of 5% or less is a good indicator. Carbohydrates. The sugars include both natural and added sugars. Some people just look at the hard carbohydrates. It's good to look at the added sugars. So fruit. Fruit has natural sugar. Fruit juice will have a lot of added sugars to it. Be aware of serving size tricks. Always be aware of the serving size. And then check the ingredient list in order by weight. Products containing hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils actually contain trans fats, even if it's listed as 0 grams on the label. So there's always tricks they try to get you with. Examples of FDA-approved nutrient content claims on food labels. If it says calorie-free, it means the legal definition is the food provides fewer than 5 calories per serving. So legally, as long as there's less than 5 calories per serving, that company can label it as calorie-free or 0 calories. High fiber. Food contains 5 grams or more fiber per serving. Food listed in this high fiber claim must also meet the definition of low fat. So There's the nutrient content claim on the label, and then there's the actual legal definition of what is in the food. Qualified health claims. So these are claims, FDA approved model health claims for foods that have significant scientific evidence supporting that claim. These are all listed in your book. Calcium and vitamin D and osteoporosis, regular exercise, healthy diet with enough calcium, keeps teen and young adult, white and Asian women maintain good bone health and may reduce their risk of high osteoporosis later in life. What does that mean for other people? We will talk about it. Dietary fat and cancer. Development of cancer depends on many factors, but a diet low in total fat may reduce the risk of some cancers. Saturated fat and cholesterol and risk of CAD. Development of heart disease depends on many factors, but its risk may be reduced by diets low in saturated fat, cholesterol, living healthy lifestyles. Again, these are all claims that have significant scientific evidence to back them from all of these different organizations, the FDA, the USDA, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, all of those. Dietary, carbohydrate sweeteners, and dental caries. Frequent eating of foods high in sugar and starches as between meal snacks can promote tooth decay. The sugar alcohol used to sweeten this food may reduce the risk of dental caries or cavities. Fiber-containing grains, grain products, fruits, and vegetables, and cancer. Low-fat diets rich in fiber containing grains, products, fruits, and vegetables may reduce the risk of some types of cancer, a disease associated with many factors. So these are more. There are 3 pages of this. Folate and neural tube defects, fruit and vegetables, and cancer. Risk of coronary artery disease, sodium and hypertension. Diets low in sodium may reduce the risk of high blood pressure, a disease associated with many other factors. And the soluble fiber from certain foods and risk of coronary artery disease. These are all related variables that have been studied. Soy protein and the risk of coronary artery disease. Diets low in saturated fat and cholesterol that include 25 grams of soy protein a day may reduce the risk of heart disease. Plant sterol or stanol esters and risk of coronary heart disease. Macadamia nuts and risk of coronary heart disease. That one's qualified. Supportive but not conclusive research shows that eating 1.5 ounces per day of macadamia nuts as part of a diet low in saturated fat and cholesterol and not resulting in increased intake of saturated fats or calories may reduce the risk of coronary artery disease. Functional foods contain food components not considered in nutrients in the traditional sense that may provide positive health benefits. Includes fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, such as fish such as salmon, Greek yogurt, fortification with nutrients or nutraceuticals like those phytochemicals found in plants and fruits and vegetables, is a current technique to make functional foods. Example, calcium fortified juices and multivitamin or mineral fortified cereals. Many products marketed as functional foods are simply dietary supplements in disguise and use structure and function claims to suggest health benefits. Examples, soup with St. John's wort, snack foods with kava kava, cereals with ginkgo biloba, and energy drinks with caffeine. Dietary supplements, defined by the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, a dietary supplement is a food product added to the total diet that contains at least one of the following ingredients: a vitamin, a mineral, an herb or another plant product, an amino acid, or a dietary substance that supplements the diet by increasing total intake. Supplements also have labels, just like foods. So, serving size, and then all of its facts. Will dietary supplements improve my health? The best nutritional advice is to obtain your nutrients by eating a wide variety of nutrient-rich foods. However, people may benefit from dietary supplements if they're on a restrictive diet for one reason or another. They're an adult over the age of 50. People following vegan diets may need supplements for the things that they're lacking. Pregnant women or women of childbearing age may need extra supplements. You have a medical condition that limits your food choices, certain digestive disorders, or the absorption of nutrients is impaired, like due to medications or surgery. Can they harm my health? Users of dietary supplements may disregard other very important lifestyle behaviors. Nothing is a magic bullet. Supplements are not a magic bullet. They're not a reason to stop eating healthy. They may have a false sense of security. Thus, one may not eat right. They may take excessive dosages, which may be harmful. If you use supplements as alternative medicine and not seek proper medical advice, people do that. They may take supplements that are contaminated. It happens. Or they may use supplements that may impair health and even be fatal. We talked about ephedra last time, how people used to die from that. Keep the following advice in mind before trying a dietary supplement to treat a health problem. Try changing your diet or lifestyle first. Check with your healthcare provider, especially with herbal supplements. Buy standardized products from reputable sources. Use only single ingredient supplements. Be alert to positive and negative side effects. And stop taking the supplement immediately if you experience any health-related problems. Report problems to the physician or local health authorities. Recommendations for better physical performance. Healthful nutrition for actual physical performance is the next section. Sports nutrition for the physically active person may be viewed from two aspects: nutrition for training and then nutrition for competition. There are differences. The prudent, healthy diet that we've been talking about this whole time will provide adequate food, energy, and nutrients to meet the needs of almost all athletes in training and competition. Most athletes do not have special nutritional requirements above those of non-athletes. Most. So during training, energy expenditure increases during a training period, meaning you burn more calories. Caloric intake is needed to maintain a body weight. It may increase considerably if you are burning that many excess calories. Select these additional calories from a wide variety of foods to obtain essential nutrients for the formation of new body tissues and proper functioning of the energy systems that work harder during exercise. For endurance athletes, dietary carbohydrates should receive greater emphasis. Carbohydrates equals energy. Considerations for diet during training: always follow the prudent, healthy diet, just the basic diet plan. And then chronic training effect. Focus on adequate intakes of nutrients in early phases of training. Nutrient timing is actually important during training and in pre-competition. The intake of carbohydrate and protein just before or after an intense training session has been advocated to promote recovery and anabolism. Breakfast is actually especially important during training. A balanced breakfast provides a significant amount of calories and other nutrients in the daily diet. Start off your day right. Skim milk, poached egg, whole grain toast, fortified high fiber cereal, and orange juice are all recommended. They will help prevent the onset of mid-morning hunger, and they may enhance performance. When and what should I eat just prior to competition? Major goals of the pre-competition meal involve timing and composition. When you eat the meal, allow the stomach to be relatively empty at the start. Help to prevent or minimize gastrointestinal distress. You don't want gastrointestinal distress as you are competing. Help avoid sensations of hunger, lightheadedness, or fatigue. They provide adequate energy supplies, primarily carbohydrates in the blood and muscles, and foods that provide an adequate amount of body water. These are all important in a pre-competition meal. So these are just recommendation samples for pre-competition meals. If you have a morning event the night before, eat a high-carb meal. Early morning, eat a light breakfast or snack: cereal, milk, fresh fruit, juice, 100% juice with none of those added sugars. Toast, bagel, or English muffin, pancakes. Pancakes or waffles are fine, a lot of carbohydrates. Non-fat or low-fat yogurt or a liquid pre-event meal. Afternoon events, eat a high carbohydrate meal both the night before and for breakfast. Follow with a light lunch: salad, low-fat dressing, turkey sandwich with a small portion of turkey, fresh fruit, low-fat crackers, high-carb nutritional bars, pretzels, or rice cakes. And then evening events, eat a high-carb breakfast and lunch, followed by a light meal or snack: pasta, rice with vegetables, light cheese pizza with vegetable toppings is okay, noodle or rice soup with crackers, baked potato with vegetables. Those are all recommendations for pre-competition meals, depending on what time of day your competition is. The ASCM notes that no one food or group of foods works for every single athlete. Individual athletes may need to experiment to find which foods and amount of food and timing works best. During competition, carbohydrates may provide additional supplies of the preferred energy source during prolonged high intensity, intermittent, and endurance exercises. Water intake is critical for regulation of body temperature when exercising in warm environments and in ultra distance, cross country, long distance races. A hypotonic salt solution also may be recommended. There's a lot of gels for runners that will make sure your cells are retaining enough water. In general, a balanced diet will meet nutritional needs for most athletes. Carbohydrate and fat are the main nutrients that we use during exercise. And then simple sugars, eaten immediately after a hard workout, may help restore muscle glycogen fairly rapidly. Those are usually found in fruits, just simple glucose. Consuming a small amount of high quality protein may also be prudent. Should athletes use commercial sports foods? Sports foods may be convenient and appropriate before, during, and after competition or training, but they should not be used as a substitute for a healthy diet. So, liquid sports meals, bars, drinks, gels, candy, and supplements. They're just that, supplements, not used to replace. How can I eat more nutritionally while traveling? One option is to pack your own food influence in a traveling bag or cooler, which can be tough. My daughter plays softball, and there are fields that do not allow outside food, which is annoying, but we deal with it. Taking your own food means you can eat your pre event or post event meal as planned, and you may save money. Select healthful, high carb, and low fat foods at restaurants. Look for nutrient contents on menus. Usually, menus these days have the nutrient contents, at least the calorie and then the carb, the fat, the protein. And smartphone app. You can always use a smartphone app. There are apps that track all of this. How do gender and age influence nutritional recommendations? Gender. There are a few differences in nutritional needs for males and females. Adolescent and adult premenopausal females may need more iron. Many women need fewer calories than men, and some women may develop disordered eating practices as they attempt to lose body mass for competition purposes, which of course is a negative. That may lead to the development of premature osteoporosis due to calcium imbalance. Age, young athletes may need more. We all know young athletes are hungry all the time. More protein, more calcium, more carbs. Older athletes need fewer calories but more B vitamins and vitamin D. Females over 50 need to focus on obtaining adequate calcium. And both need to use caution when exercising in the heat. Everybody needs to get enough water and electrolytes. That is the information for chapter 2. I will see you next chapter.